The Nintendo Entertainment System had a series of sports games, the ones simply titled baseball, tennis, and ice hockey, etc. Sega had to respond with their own sports games, but those weren't just going to be more sports games. They had to be superior, they had to be better than good, they had to be great. Baseball? No, screw that, this is great baseball. Nintendo got tennis? Well, Sega's the only one with a great tennis game. Funny thing is, in the US, the great tennis entry was actually called Super Tennis instead. I guess Sega of America failed to predict a game called Super Tennis would come out 6 years in the future for the new system Nintendo had even started developing yet. Stupid Sega of America. I said I'd cover these Sega Mark III launch year games in the Japanese release order, but I have to make an exception to the great sports games, because I couldn't possibly come up with enough to say to justify giving each of them their own separate reviews. For the release year, only Great Soccer, Great Baseball, and Great Tennis, aka Super Tennis, came out. Great Soccer did come out after the first couple launch day games, but the other two were sandwiched between other MyCard releases during that year. I'm generally not a fan of sports video games unless they're hilariously janky or pure arcade fun with tight controls, so I apologize in advance if I sound too cynical here. Great Soccer is the first of the three, and if you're in North America, you're probably confused about what you're seeing. The Great Soccer you got is actually the English release of Road Soccer, a 98-7 soccer game with the playfield in horizontal orientation. The real Great Soccer that came out in Japan and Europe is this one that came out for the Mark III in '85. This looks barely better than the NAS Soccer if I'm being honest, and it doesn't play any better. You run around some playfield almost like you're running with feet deep in the mud. Thankfully, the playfield is really small, so going from the center to any of the goals doesn't take long. You kick the ball to the direction you're holding, or you can pass it to another player. The pass feels a bit wonky, but I'm not the greatest at soccer games, so maybe I was just doing it wrong. What I'm sure of is that every kick and pass feels delayed, and sometimes the computer opponent will steal the ball when you thought you had already pushed the button to kick. You can steal the ball yourself, but only if the game gives you control of the nearest player, which it likes not to do sometimes. Normally you steal by running against the ball, but whether it works or not feels inconsistent at times. What I really can't stand about this one is that you control your own goalkeeper using the D-pad as soon as they're on screen. And this happens even while you're already controlling one of the players. This caused me to give the opponent free goals by accident many times because I couldn't change my focus from the running player to the keeper fast enough. This game doesn't believe in territorial borders or nationalism, so you cannot choose your team. You can choose the difficulty against the computer, but I lost interest really quickly after 2 matches, so I didn't care to try making the opponent even harder. There isn't much else to say about this game. It features all the basics of football, and player movement is so sluggish, playing it for too long might injure your thumb. It's probably more fun with 2 players, but unless you're watching this from '85, I simply wouldn't bother with this game for your multiplayer needs on the Mark III or Master System. Great Baseball for the Mark III. Shouldn't be confused with Great Baseball, the 1987 game for the Master System. That one was a localized version of the Pro Yaku Pennant Race, a different Mark III game from 1987 that came out on cartridge. This baseball game looks slightly better than the NES Baseball, but is paced slightly worse. Everything seems to take longer than it should. Animations seem to drag on, and the ball makes a sound that isn't great on the ears when hit by the batter. Unlike with Great Soccer, you can actually choose a team. I don't know what their initials stand for, but I picked the first one because their uniform colors are atrocious. The difference is obviously only aesthetic. The main gameplay comes when you're playing as a batter or a pitcher. You can adjust your position in all 4 directions before swinging, and I have no idea how the physics in this game work. It never feels like the timing of the swing is right, and it took me a long time to get used to it. Even then, I find myself questioning if where the ball was going made any sense very often. This is not a problem exclusive to this game. I just don't think some of these first iterations of 8-bit baseball games had enough clear indications of what you're doing wrong. Still, I was able to get some semblance of fun playing as a batter. I absolutely hated playing as a pitcher though. And because you can only do so much to prevent the computer from hitting the ball, the pitcher phase lasts a lot longer than the batter phase. The animation for pitching takes too long, the computer randomly receives 1 or 2 strikes to pad the whole thing longer. It's just... God, it's so freaking boring! You don't have much control once the ball is in the air. Your teammates will automatically move to catch the ball if it's not a home run. Usually in a big display of incompetence that gives the computer opponent time to run. Your only input then is to throw the ball to one of the bases before the opposing team is safe. So basically just like in NES Baseball. And just like in NES Baseball, you can throw the ball back and forth endlessly if the CPU players are safe. Is this a thing that happens in real baseball? I guess it has to be, or it wouldn't be a feature in 2 different baseball video games. In my opinion, if you want to have fun with this game and you don't have a friend with an equally bad taste in video games coming over, you really should only play the home run contest. It's way better than the normal game mode. Really, it's just how dang slow this game moves that makes me get bored of it in 5 minutes of playtime. Of the 3 games covered in this episode, this is by far the most tedious. There are better alternatives on the system. I'll probably talk about them at some point in the future. And finally, here's Great Tennis, or Super Tennis since this is a US release. Not to be confused with a Super Nintendo game of the same name, because of course, can't have a game in this series without some naming confusion. Super Tennis came out in '86, but the Japanese My Kind release came out in '85, that's why we're talking about it now. This isn't the best looking game in the bunch, but that's okay, because it's easily the best one when it comes to gameplay. That is, unless you really hate tennis. You have one button for lob shots and another for every other kind of racket move. I guess the lob shot is supposed to give you more time to reposition or force the computer to move away from the net. I only used this in a few matches, then stopped using it completely. Because to be quite frank, I didn't find it very useful for winning. Tennis is one of those sports that is very easy to translate into video games, so the gameplay is mostly intuitive, with the side you swing the racket and the direction you move on the D-pad affecting where the ball will go. Unfortunately, they couldn't find a way to give you full control over the speed of your movement during the matches, so you can only change that before starting the game. You can also change the CPU behavior into more offensive or defensive if you prefer, or the difficulty level of the game, which seems to only affect the speed of the ball itself. There is also some kind of control level setting that, according to the manual, makes the controls more accurate. I didn't test this for very long, but I couldn't tell the difference. I wasn't able to try the multiplayer mode since there wasn't anyone to help me test it, but in this game, 2-player mode only lets you play doubles against the computer, not player versus player. I expected little from this after the crap the other 2 games put me through, but Great Tennis actually earns the title of great. This isn't a perfect attempt by any means. Serving can be a pain in the rear sometimes with how picky the game is about the ball height. Even the computer gets penalized for it very often, and it takes a while to get used to your distance in relation to the ball. You will probably still screw things up due to the bad sense of depth, distance, and the faulty service while winning matches, so you don't need to become a perfect player to beat the game. And I do mean beat it. This game is very beatable in the highest difficulty, even if your skills are very average like mine. In fact, I encourage you to set the difficulty to level 5 once you get used to the controls and movement. That way, This game goes from this weird slow motion tennis to seriously, this game is way more fun like this. Look how fast that ball goes. I didn't even know that Master System could handle so much speed and bounciness. It actually feels much more like a proper, exciting tennis game. Not that real tennis looks that exciting. Even in this mode, I didn't bother changing my movement speed, but I'm sure it's significantly easier to win if you get used to speed 2 or 3 or something. If 5 is too much, try a level 4 at least. Just trust me on this. The computer opponent itself didn't act any smarter. At times it looked as if the CPU couldn't even handle the higher speed because I swear he was getting penalized way more often. And that kind of janky side effect only adds to the entertainment value of the game. Is this the best tennis game of the Master System or Mark III? I don't know. Apparently there are only 2 others, so I guess we'll find out someday. Anyway, I definitely can't recommend Great Soccer, Great Baseball, but Super Tennis is great fun if you want some very retro tennis game on your Sega Master System. Nintendo is always re-releasing their NES sports games all the time, so Sega should really consider doing the same thing with their own series. Until that happens, you're on your own to play these great games. Thanks for watching and take care.